Welcome, welcome. Lovely audience. You have the very first ever live edition of Unnamed Sunday Crypto. My name is Seth Estrada. I have with me my brother,
Aaron Estrada. So how are you guys doing? We're live. We're in Provo, Utah.
They don't know where I am, dude.
Oh, I just outed you.
I mean, it's a big place, so
Yeah.
good luck finding me. I'm in a bunker. I am behind reinforced concrete right now. So, Izzy, how are you? Got Gohul, Litecoin Lucky. Good to see you. Flack, always a pleasure. Muse Caffeine. I see you, brother. And Terry B. Guys, thanks so much for hitting that like button. Thanks so much for sharing out this video. We wanted to talk about a couple of things that have happened this week outside of the hardware stuff, outside of the mining performance. That's what Unnamed Sunday Crypto is all about, is we talk about all the other stuff that happens in crypto because, I mean, let's face it, this stuff is moving. It's moving faster than the speed of light.
Oh yeah, it's crazy, man. This week's news is just, well, this is what people have been talking about for almost a year. Things going kind of mainstream into the traditional markets. So it's happening, guys. It's actually happening now. So it's amazing that Bitcoin price is not responding better to this. But for anybody who missed this one, because you must have been under a rock if you missed it, ICE, Intercontinental Exchange, and they're the ones that own the New York Stock Exchange. They're building a new exchange called Backed, which is a Bitcoin exchange built to sort of like industrial strength expectations.
Well, I think it's meant to be a play on words. It's the opposite of wrecked. So what happens when you have a financial system that is not going to get wrecked? That means it's backed. And I don't know. Hey, anybody over at New York Stock Exchange, if you want to send me a royalty for that, you're welcome. Help you with your branding a little bit. I'm pretty sure they already paid somebody tons of money to come up with that name Backed, but whatever. But hey, Litecoin Lucky, thanks so much. On behalf of my brother, he likes his beard too. Otherwise, he wouldn't keep it.
Yeah. This is I was going for a wizard beard. This is I wanted to go even longer, but I've hit my genetic maximum actually. So if anyone's got tips on how to increase beard length.
Yeah, and if the first person to say extension is permabanned.
Yeah. Talk about natural beard.
Men do not use beard extensions. Real men. But hey, newbie, I apologize. I didn't give you the shout out. And Hoji Hung, thank you for coming on over to the video stream, guys. Appreciate you sharing out the live stream, especially to our cryptocurrency on Reddit and across Twitter. What we're talking about today this is huge, guys. This is going to affect all of us, I suspect, on every side of crypto. Doesn't matter how you are acquiring crypto, whether you're mining, whether you're buying, trading, whether you're into masternodes and you're contributing to networks in order to receive block rewards in some way. This is going to become the new normal.
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing is, and this article, I'm not sure if it's this one, it was another one I read, I think on CCN or one of the others, but they make a really interesting observation, which is if you try to build a decentralized system on a centralized system, that's obviously not really going to work, right? But their observation was if you can build a centralized system on top of a decentralized system, and in a lot of ways, all that does is lend credibility to the decentralized system. You're saying this is like virtual gold, or this back end, this decentralized back end is robust enough that we can build other platforms on top of it, including these more centralized platforms. So I think for people who say, oh, that's bad, it's the centralization of Bitcoin, blah 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 blah. Well, you need on ramps and off ramps for the traditional cryptocurrencies, right? So it's a necessary part of the ecosystem, and the fact that that ICE thinks that it's worth putting, these guys, they own the New York Stock Exchange. The fact that they think Bitcoin's mature enough to build a product around it says a lot at this point about where they feel Bitcoin is, what it's reached right now. So
nice. Yeah, and not only that, with on ramps and off ramps, you figure also a question of there being like people being worried about decentralized systems versus like getting centralized somehow. There's also the reality that there are, with Bitcoin, as it is with any of the various currencies throughout the world and any of the stocks throughout the world, Vladimir's right. Decentralization is something of a myth, and we're still basically we're all still forging ahead in a large scale experiment on decentralization and trying to figure out, like, can we make that work? The reality is also, anytime that there is some kind of profit motive, there's a tendency to move towards centralization of power, right? People who have a big bag of USD can buy a big bag of BTC. People who have a big bag of USD can buy a big mine and mine a bunch of ETH, right? So there's kind of the reality that there is a form of centralization taking place no matter what we do with these networks and with the technology. So it's nice to see that there are large financial interests trying to figure out, how do we make this accessible to people who are just, feeding into a 401k, who are just feeding into an IRA and trying to figure out, will this work for retirement? Will this work for any other kind of traditional investment vehicle?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've had friends that one of the things the article talks about, how 401ks and IRAs can then be involved with this. And I have friends that have been hand rolling their own self-directed IRAs and stuff just so that they could have cryptocurrencies in their portfolio. So I have a feeling the fund managers realize that there's a demand that they're not meeting, people who want to include cryptos in their portfolios. And now if this thing comes together, this new platform backed, it's going to provide those tools.
Backed is the anti-rect.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I can't see the name Backed. The way they've spelled it, I can't see it without thinking of the word wrecked. Like, it's so dumb. First off, who even came up with that? I think it's hilarious now, but it's only hilarious because it's so dumb.
The domain was available. Have you ever tried to find a domain name that was also a trademarkable name? It's next to impossible. So that's probably.
I mean, I think I might have found one. Mind your biz.
Yeah. No, but it's a pain. It's really hard, especially when you want like a single word, like short word that's trademarkable, but also the domain is available, or somebody doesn't want to charge you like $1 million for the domain. So that's probably why the weird.
So Izzy, I appreciate that sentiment in the comments there. Defeatist attitudes. I'm with you. I'm not going to concede defeat in the quest for decentralization. What I do see here, though, is I see a much broader audience. You guys saw, I mean, I went live yesterday and we brought up the concept of teaching grandma crypto, right? Making crypto accessible for air quotes grandma. Who's grandma? Anybody that is uninitiated and maybe needs kind of like training wheels to get into this without having to become a domain level expert on hardware, software, cryptography, and networks. Like, it's kind of crazy for us to expect that every person who would ever be able to participate in something that touches finance would have to become a domain level expert on all these other things as well. So for there to be any other large entities entering the space to make it more accessible to air quotes grandma, whoever she is, then I think that's a good thing. And we can continue to do the large scale experiments with decentralization, a la Monero and Zcash and Ethereum. We can continue to do that. But I think it's really important, if we want to have like a really bright future and vibrant future by way of adoption, to allow for this stuff to happen also, and figure out like, okay, how do we support this without it surrendering all the control to these large centralized authorities?
Well, and I think that I wish I don't think I brought the link in our sort of stack of links here, but the article made a really good point about the way that the decentralized systems, you can build a centralized system on top of a decentralized system. So like a layer 2 kind of solution. Well, this is what they mentioned in the article here of what they want to build. To me, sounds more like an exchange that just has a lot of traction compared to like a layer 2 solution. So they essentially have a private ledger, and then they keep a track of what's going on. So it works basically like a lot of exchange engines do under the hood, and then they settle back to the blockchain. That's always an option. It's possible to build that, but it's impossible to do the reverse. And I think that was the important part of that other article that I read. I think it was on CCN. So if you want to try to dig it up on your own, and it doesn't threaten the decentralization of Bitcoin that much. The network still exists as a decentralized network, totally independent of these on ramps and off ramps. But these on ramps and off ramps create a regulated interface point by which all of these traditional services like IRAs and funds and stuff like that, not hedge funds, but actual managed funds, can interact with the ecosystem without getting themselves in hot water. So it's really just growing. I guess you could say it's growing the customer base for the blockchain, for all of these organizations that before, the entities that couldn't, like legally or at least without a huge amount of regulatory risk themselves, interact with the blockchain. So yeah. I mean, it's actually kind of a win. This is the fruition of what everybody's been talking about since like late last year of like the institutional investors coming. This is it. It's happening now. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, guys, hide your kids, hide your wife, hide your mining rigs. New York Stock Exchange is coming at you. But Wes, I totally agree. Grandma needs to be able to give gifts in crypto. And Flack, what you mentioned about there being more accessible learning materials, 99 Bitcoins has done a really great job of that. The MIT, what is their newsletter called? Totally worth it, by the way. If you aren't signed up to their newsletter, I'll make sure to add a link in the description after we finish going live here. But MIT's got... gosh, what is it called? It's called the chain letter, actually, is what it's called. The MIT chain letter. And it's really great, but it's bite-sized weekly bits of info on helping the traditional person that hasn't touched any of these domains start to really like grasp some of the core concepts. Again, 99 Bitcoins, great resource there. They've pretty much covered almost anything that you would throw into a new curriculum by way of wallets and addresses and mining versus proof of work versus proof of stake. All that exists, guys. It's all out there. But the problem is that a lot of people still feel like that's like it's too much. I just don't care to learn that much. So say, for example, that it's funny, actually, that in our audience, like in our community, there are a ton of dudes that are car guys because I think we're all like somewhat mechanically inclined. So imagine, for example, you've got a friend that's an auto body person, right? They're not always necessarily super handy under the hood, and they might not know a ton about suspension. They might not know a ton about exhaust systems, but they might be able to take whatever, an old Toyota MR2 and make it look like a Lambo, right? With just a single, like with a can of Bondo or whatever. So they're uniquely suited to doing that thing. They might not care to learn how to do bolt-on turbos and tuning and polishing and stuff. So it's not weird to think that there are people in the world that don't care to learn about addresses and proof of work versus proof of stake. For them, they don't even want to think about it.
Well, think about this. How many people do you know actually know how electricity works? Like, I guarantee you probably know how to use the light switch at your house, but do you actually understand how electricity works? There's a lot of people in the world who really actually don't care about the technical details of how things work. So who here, just throw up a 1, and it's just the first time I've ever been involved in a live chat. Throw up a 1 if you've tried to explain blockchain to somebody before.
Come on, guys. No, we're not moving forward until you do it. If you've made the effort to educate grandma and haven't been like,
yeah, just throw up a 1 in the chat channel. And who has succeeded in actually explaining it to somebody in the first try?
And if you've done that, give us a 1.1. I guess.
Yeah, right.
You can put both hands up.
Because man, it's tricky, right? Trying to explain how all the pieces fit together, and sometimes you feel like as you describe it, especially the first few times you do it, or when you're just getting involved yourself. You're not even sure sometimes you get to a point where you're like, wait a second, I'm not sure I even understand this part myself.
Right. Well, I feel bad for that. What was that kid that was on YouTube last year? And he's like, and private address and I don't a private key. And I don't really know what that is, but he was live on YouTube when he said it.
Send me your private key, bro. I'll fix it for you.
Right. So, and it's okay to admit ignorance, but at the same time, like, yeah, crypto, it's a weird space where like it really demands a lot of you to understand. Like this is like you have to begin to understand something about network security over time and network hygiene, and it forces you to like grow up really fast in terms of security online and in terms of security on your own personal networks. And then if you have to start spinning up masternodes and stuff, you have to grow up even faster because now you're broadcasting your IP to a network. Are you going to run a masternode from home? You probably shouldn't.
Right. You're going to get DDoSed at home. On a mining pool. No, I mean, but yeah. So at a certain point, I think of the normies, as Seth frequently calls them, and I call them as well. They really don't care to know how all that stuff works under the hood. They're content to just have something like a Visa card or something that just works, right? So I think all these guys entering into the business is probably a good development, as long as they don't get like too greedy about the fees and stuff.
Well, I mean, there's the sad reality that as soon as a large organization enters a space, they will push the envelope. It's only when It's only when it's painfully clear to some of these larger entities that they can't be evil that they will finally not be evil.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to interject. That's one of the cool things about the fact that the underlying network still exists. I mean, the same reason I get upset when people slam, like, say, Lightning Network. Lightning Network is a system-based second layer solution, right? Or I guess you could say a native second layer solution. Things like these exchanges, they're not native to the blockchain itself, right? So you could argue that they do create some, well, there's always that counterparty risk when you're actually interacting with them with an exchange or whatever. But but they're necessary for people who really don't want to deal with the sort of more technical native or scaling solutions like Lightning Network is a good example, right? And when people get all upset about, oh, Lightning Network, it's going to lead to all this centralization, it's like, well, who was it that said centralization is a myth? That's kind of true. Decentralization is a myth. At a certain point, we've spoken about this a little bit in the past too. It's like this sliding scale of decentralization where total decentralization is the sort of the goal, or the sort of like the ideal that is almost unattainable. And then to the other extreme end of the spectrum, which is complete centralization, which of course is what we're trying to get away from in a lot of ways with the blockchain stuff.
Yeah.
The usable, there's some usable part in the middle there, or some overlap of the two. That decentralized and centralized can overlap, right? The Venn diagram, and that's what's got me a little bit more excited about this, is like somebody actually taking it serious, or this kind of project so big, because there's so many smaller projects that have tried, or some of them not so small. They've raised a lot of money, but these guys have like ginormous resources behind them. So,
well, and it's been cyclical too. We've seen it over the last several years. Like Stripe jumped out of the game last year, right before Coinbase Commerce, right before it launched, where Stripe was like, "Yeah, we're not doing crypto conversions anymore. Like, you can't pay in BTC and have us fence it for you to fiat anymore." Which is like, what a kick to the nuts, guys. We just let it happen. And yeah, so these big players, they've come in before, and they've had deep pockets. They've had the resources to be able to solve problems for us. And for whatever reason, we haven't figured out how to rally behind some of these solutions and say, all right, we can somehow make this work with these centralized players, and then, and let them touch our decentralized system. So I don't know. We have to stop. We have to stop like getting angry and taking the ball home with us, and figure out, how do we share? How do we play ball with these guys?
Yeah, Vladimir's saying, if people understood the principle of blockchain, we wouldn't be using fiat right now. Well, that actually brings up maybe the next subject. We can move on from this one. I didn't bring up the website, but who read about that nano fork bananos?
Bananos?
Yeah. So the genesis of bananos.
I got to pull this up, man.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take this off the screen. I've got to pull this up.
Was that they it was on a Reddit channel or something. They tipped someone who turned out to be in Venezuela. And the person just was extremely humbled by the tip. They were like, I got to admit, guys, this is like an entire day's salary for me, right? It just seemed like a nominal tip. Banano.
Right, I did. Google knows better. Sorry, I tried.
Maybe nano, if you typed in nano and banano.
Right,
yeah. Don't let your memes be dreams.
Dude.
So they were completely humble. Like, they have the particle JS, but with bananas.
Oh my gosh, they're extra legit. Particle.js plus special objects,
So he was completely humbled by this tip that he got, which was like a whole day's salary. And everyone's like, okay, maybe we can help the people in Venezuela with cryptocurrencies, which of course it's been a lifeline for a lot of people who figured it out before. But by creating this new cryptocurrency, and essentially, like, I don't know how everybody feels about airdrops. I know some people think airdrops are a total scam and blah, blah. Everybody thinks everything's a scam in crypto. It's like, look, some things are a scam and some things aren't. And some things have scam-like attributes but aren't scams, right? Like, so anyway, they created this Banano and did an airdrop so that they could just get this into people's hands, like, say, in Venezuela or wherever, make it easy to, and so they bootstrapped a new cryptocurrency. It's definitely a meme coin or a joke coin, but there's people in it's not a shit coin until you found that little clip in there. Not a shit coin until they digested. But but they bootstrapped a cryptocurrency even though it's kind of meant to be a meme coin or a joke coin, it's actually helping people on the ground in Venezuela. It's feeding people. It's like literally saving people's lives. Take that, Roger Ver.
Right? People are living in Venezuela because of altcoins.
Because of a shit coin. So anyway, I mean, I find this fascinating. No matter, like, I think we already live in a post fiat world. To sort of like answer to Vladimir's statement, I think that we actually are already living in a post fiat world, because when things get bad enough, people just take action and fix it themselves now. They don't have to sit around and wait to be starved out by their government or whatever.
Yeah. And you've got a comment there. I'm not gonna bring up your username because I've got devs who I respect too much over at Ravencoin. But you're right. We could just stop sanctioning Venezuela. However, that's out of our hands. That's out of our hands directly. What's in our hands? Going to fork a repo and making it functional and letting that cross borders.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, meme coins. I mean, I don't know that Lupe Coin is actually going to be able to do this, but clearly Banano Coin did. And so having that cross borders totally works. Same with that what was it? The wheat purchase, the Russian wheat purchase that was done in Bitcoin last year, which is super cool. I want to say there was a sanction on the currency that would have been used between these two countries. So they went with Bitcoin. And it was a substantial, like multiple tons of wheat that was purchased from Russia. And they used BTC. So no, there is real good being done in the world with all kinds of coins. The King Daddy, BTC, all the way down to the newest entries with Banano Coin. So for sure. And Terry B, you're not wrong, man. Joke coins they really do better than 80% of the coins that have come out.
Well, I would argue
Canary Coin is not dead because the community's alive.
How many non-joke coins are joke coins? Anyway, that's just a rhetorical question, but
right. It's funny. I don't know if you saw the interview with So guys, again, shout out to John Murphy John W. Murphy over at Wowario. Or no, he's not Wowario. Wowario is their ANON dev, but at Wownero, who also is a mod at our cryptocurrency. So guys, big shout out. Make sure you share us over on our cryptocurrency on Reddit. But no, their coin is doing great. People accuse Rocksteady and Turtlecoin of being a meme coin. They're doing awesome. They have more active developers in their community than most of the top 50 market cap coins, just because of how they foster community and they foster they've got their own little microeconomy of just teaching each other how to program blockchain stuff. So it's pretty cool. Like you might not get rich trying to trade Turtlecoin, but if you hang out with their community, you're going to learn stuff. That's impressive.
Yeah. I mean, don't forget it's interesting. Like you read all the mainstream news about the Bitcoin stuff. They make it sound like as if there's some kind of directed that there's some kind of conspiracy to make Bitcoin take over the world. It's like not exactly the origin of that like movement in the cryptocurrency universe. I mean, yeah, it's sort of libertarian and sort of anarcho-capitalist, or it has these roots with the initial manifesto from Satoshi. But at the same time, it's like, no, like who? It's not like we're marching with pitchforks saying, "Oh, we're gonna replace the entire fiat system with Bitcoin."
I don't know. Some of us are.
Yeah, but at the same time, the point is, it's organically happening where it makes sense. And then there's that whole spectrum of it all the way down to the meme coins and the joke coins, where those communities or microcosms of community exist for their only, like even like Canary Coin, which I'm so proud of the fact that I helped name that coin.
Hey guys, yeah, disclosure. Aaron suggested Canary Coin. He did suggest it before we did the community vote.
And I even suggested, you might have already been thinking about it, like you should just use it as a test bench for doing Prog Pow.
Oh, that was roadmap for me.
But you just but you needed something. Yeah, but now you have a stupid named coin to do it. Anyway, but
so yeah, next week Aaron will have a little like plush canary in his beard, popping its head out when we go back to our test net and actually have something to mine again. Sorry guys.
Yeah, but I mean, it's okay for a coin to just have this very specific use case that's very focused and doesn't aim to take over the world. Like I am sure that what's the name of the Dogecoin creator? When he created Dogecoin, his idea wasn't like to completely take over the world. And when Litecoin was launched, the whole idea was to sort of like do a better job from the last time that Charlie launched a coin. He felt that it didn't work as well as he wanted to. So he launched another coin to like improve and create a more fair launch and get rid of some of the bad stuff mistakes that he felt he made on the previous launch. I mean, so it's but then, you know, sometimes the coins take root and they just take on a life of themselves. Like Turtlecoin's a great example of something that just like, yeah, hold my beer, and then before you know it, you have a community.
Or in, you know, Rocksteady's case, don't hold his beer. He'll
he'll hold it himself.
He'll slam 3 while we fork. that was it actually was. Even I was impressed. I don't know what that means because I don't drink, but whatever. So Litecoin Lucky. No, hold on a second. Whatever happened to the Ethereum, the ETH Classic token? I forget the name of it.
Oh,
womp womp. Sorry, I'm not using the soundboard today, guys. There were a couple of great questions here, a couple of great comments. Izzy, you're mentioning so many of these small ventures getting crushed by the big news that we started this stream with. You may be right. Yeah, news like having this ICE, the Microsoft and Starbucks backed venture into whatever it is exactly they're going to do. Because I think right now they're doing like a lot of these small coins as well. They're road mapping features. They're not debuting anything today. They're announcing intent, right? So you're right. It could be that the air quotes big bags of the world that have a ton of resources, it could be that they're edging out and pushing out some of these smaller projects. But I'm not totally convinced. I think that there are projects, again, going to invoke Turtlecoin here because I really appreciate the community that I saw there and how quickly they welcomed me in when I showed any interest in potentially forking a crypto node. And they said like, hey, just start small, start commenting in a repo. Guess what? Now you have a commit history in GitHub and, help us, whatever, do localization of the README file or do spell, check our spelling, make sure that we don't say dumb things or spell things incorrectly. Now you're a contributor and you have a GitHub commit history. And now you can start taking a look at some of these different parameters here, maybe change parameters. Guess what? Now you've actually altered code. So you're not just a contributor, you are now a developer. And you have a commit history for actually making some kind of change that has affected the way a blockchain works. So I think communities like that offer something of real value to other people, even if it's not a coin that's listed on every major exchange, they aren't affected by this news at all. If anything, they're emboldened by it because they've got more people thinking like, all right, well, I was hungry to work on something that was substantial and I'm with like-minded people that can help me figure out how to master this domain. So I don't have to be threatened by this new company. It could be that they'll be working for some of the spin-off ventures, or they'll be able to somehow get investment money from this latest development that a year from now, who knows? Who's to say that 25% of the active development community from Turtlecoin won't have like awesome jobs or have some seed money thrown their way for new coins or for new second layer solutions based on this whole new venture.
Yeah. So like Izzy's saying, we're in a glut of small coins and many of them won't exist next year. And it's like, who cares? I mean, if you saw Seth fork a coin live in a stream and have his Genesis block mined by somebody else. But anyway, I mean, it's like, it's interesting because when people say things like, oh, Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. Well, yes, it does, because the whole, like the best models for valuing things like Bitcoin is like Metcalfe's law. There's a certain network effect of how many users you have to have. And the point I was trying to make earlier is that some of these small coins that are like really just made on a whim, just for fun, or just to learn something or to test a specific idea or whatever, if they only last a year, maybe that's sufficient to complete the mission. A lot of new startups these days, actually, it's funny because you read stuff about like, oh, 99.9% of all startups fail. And it's like, well, yeah, but actually a large percentage of startups also don't fail. They just complete their mission and end operations. Like the life cycle of companies now is actually shortening every year. So like, let's say you have a cryptocurrency and it only lasts a year and they achieved all the personal goals of the founders, or whatever you want to call them, the developers that started the coin. Did the coin fail, or did they just get it out of their system what they wanted to achieve and moved on to some other project?
Guys, that's why we're pushing the Phoenix protocol for Canary Coin. We will, yeah, this first iteration will rise from the ashes, whatever the next one is. So mission accomplished. We forked something and we showed the community that you can do that with most of the CryptoNote family of coins. And it's essentially, it's trivial, guys. Even Rock told me like, oh yeah, actually I was reading from the README. He wasn't even scanning the repo to try to tell me exactly where stuff was. He was literally going line by line down the README and saying, yeah, it should be on line so and so, should be on line so and so, and he was pulling all those cues from the README. Some of the stuff is the easiest stuff in the world. So mission accomplished there, to your point. And so the life cycle of certain projects, yeah, it doesn't even have to be a year. It could be a week, it could be 2 months, until you realize, yeah, that's not exactly what we wanted. So let's come up with a better, not roadmap, let's come up with a better test net, and then launch from a stronger position.
The failures do matter. It's very contentious right now, is what Izzy says, and I'm thinking, I guess, I think you must be looking at it from the perspective of more of like coins where there seems like there's stakes, like when people are doing things like pre-sales and that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think that is a problem. And I wouldn't even say there's contention. I would say there's no controversy about the fact that people are scamming. Scamming is, lame and BS, but but launching a coin just for fun and then letting it die, as long as you're not being scammy about it, I don't really see what the problem is.
Fact check, Litecoin Lucky. I'm calling fake news on deadcoins.com, but I would love to see that it actually exists.
Yeah, there was a site like that before, so I'm not surprised. Yeah. So curated list, forgotten by this world.
All right. More. Oh man, Canary better not be on this list.
It's not dead yet. It's only wounded.
Yeah, well, like X Bitco says, Canary will take over the world. You heard it here first. Oh, sad.
No, but I mean, it's true. I remember back in the sort of the Satoshi fork days when it was like millions of Me Too coins. And now it's like the crypto note and the Masternode fork days, and the sort of, how long is it going to take before EOS gets forked a million times? Because like, if you can sell a Masternode for $1,000, how much could you sell a block producer for? Woo, like there's going to be the Me Too, and it is a problem. I mean, it's kind of lame, which is part of the reason why the SEC is all over this kind of stuff, is because they're looking at it going, well, there's definitely a line where you're now becoming a security and you're doing things in a sort of, you're not playing by the rules, and that's not cool. So, I mean, I don't know how many people are, what they say about common sense is it's not very common. You'd think that people would realize, okay, I'm being scammed. Like, these guys are probably evil. Like, they're basically forking they're doing another fork of Dash, and it's kind of lame and there's no point. And like, yeah, but I think sometimes greed wins out too. You see, like, I'm not going to name the name of the coin, but I was just watching the whole process of the launch, and it's like, yeah, you can buy a whole Masternode, and it's like, oh really? Oh, that's cool. But it's like, wait, how is that not a security?
Yeah.
Because like, there's definitely an expectation of profit. I'm selling. It's kind of like there's this weird. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the sort of Howey test for like what's a security and what's not. It has to do with this expectation of privacy, expectation of profit from other people's efforts, essentially.
Because let's pull this up really fast so we can sort of get a canonical definition of the Howey test.
Howey test, yeah.
Howey test.
Got 4 points. But there's other sort of more gray things. The Howey case had to do with essentially selling fractional shares of an orchard, and it was found to be to actually be a security, even though it was positioned in terms of the investment contract as being something slightly different. So he's saying proof of work is and I sort of agree. Like, if you launch a coin and people do the proof of work themselves, that's not a security. You just launched software and other people went on their own labor and built a coin.
Vladimir's daughter says your beard is fake.
It's not too long to be fake. It's not long enough to be fake.
We had another question regarding that. Brandon Ford, clearly from the Foot Clan over there. You can see his turtle shell on the avatar, but he's asking, on a scale of 1 to put the lotion in the basket, how soft is your beard?
Oh, it's really not that soft. I mean, yeah, I need some beard oil or something. But
I guess recommendations in the comments down below. Like, for my part, I keep my beard short enough. I don't need beard oil per se, but what do you guys use? Almond oil, coconut oil, blends? Seriously,
my favorite is coconut oil, but anyway, it's a hassle to put that stuff on. So so the whole thing with the Howey test, and also there's been other similar things like selling ostriches and things like that, where it gets too close to the line of what a security is, and that starts to make people uncomfortable. If you pre-mined a bunch of coins and then you sell the whole Masternode, that's kind of in a weird realm. I mean, I don't know. I've never talked to my lawyers about something like that. But,
yeah, well, guys, and this is as good a time as any to throw out this. It's a standard disclaimer, guys, but nothing on this show is intended to be taken as any kind of official legal, financial, or investing advice. It's really not.
If you take our legal advice, you deserve what happens to you. We're not lawyers. Disclaimer.
Yeah, we should change this to the Get Wrecked Sunday show. Right? If you do anything we say, you deserve to get wrecked. But we will make color commentary on everything. So just, take it with a grain of salt.
Everything's our opinions, and our opinions are worth nothing.
Except participating in Canary with your opinions is worth all the virtual points, all the virtual heart points.
Yeah.
And you can take that to the bank.
So let's see. I was thinking about what other day Masternode pre-sales aren't. Yeah, I mean they are. Masternode pre-sales are ICOs. It's like in the most old school sense, like the pre-sale, pre-mine, pre-ICO. Those kind of concepts predate ICOs. ICOs just they sprung from this kind of thing. Wait a second, we can pre-mine coins and sell them, and then they went wait, and then it just kept stretching it and stretching, going wait, we can pre-sell coins we haven't even mined yet. It just got more and more stretched out until we're moved from a gray area into absolutely a zone of securities where it's like you're essentially selling a futures contract. You're selling the equivalent type of instrument would be like a warrant or a convertible note. I mean, it's like that. It's like an existing security type. And so, yeah, the ICOs, so many of them went just squarely into the realm of securities. That's no wonder that the SEC finally woke up and went, okay, we better start doing something here. This is getting in, this is our wheelhouse and we're totally asleep at the wheel.
Yeah. Hey, Bob Stone, I think
to mix metaphors,
Bob, if I could make Canary Coin based on proof of FUD, then dude, we would already be over the moon, right? We'd all be driving Lambos already. But, and Brandon, what you're talking about as far as the topic of who really can give authoritative advice in the crypto space, it is a very fine line right now. Mm-hmm. But what I will say is there are a lot of attorneys. I think that you had spoken to an attorney that's not working with your team now, but
they wouldn't even touch them.
Yeah, and but to their credit, they just admitted ignorance. They just said, "Hey, we don't know enough about the space. There's not enough precedent for us to feel comfortable. We can't get involved yet."
Yeah.
And so,
then others loved it. Like the new counsel that I'm working on another project with, they're completely game to figure it out. And the thing is, here's at the end of the day, here's how it. You can always ask the SEC, and if you're planning a really big ICO type thing. First of all, you work with a real securities lawyer, and then that real securities lawyer, at some point when you get to the point where you've figured out your playbook that you want to use, and the lawyer's comfortable with how they feel you can do it in a compliant sort of way. If there's still any gray areas you're not sure about, you open up a line of communication with the SEC and you just ask their opinion. It might slow things down a little bit, but it's better to just get it straight from them directly than to find out later and have to do a giant rescission or something. Great, we got all this money, and then you have to give it all back after you've spent all the money getting all the money, because it's not cheap to do the legal fees and stuff.
And one thing I would say about evaluating counsel that may be helping you with this sort of thing is a huge red flag would be if they're not regularly reaching out to the SEC, or if they're not checking for ongoing precedent and saying all right, I just found this out. If they're not reporting back to you and saying all right, I got word back from the SEC about this, or check it out, here's precedent that's being set over here, then but they're just kind of whatever, they're like mavericks, oh no, we got this, I would be really worried about that. That'd be a red flag to me.
Because that was the sort of attitude that so many companies had for the last 2 years, where they're like, they really moved on a specific presumption of sort of the legal theory around what they were doing. We're selling software, we're selling a software license in the form of tokens and blah, blah, blah. And it only, and to be honest, I've gone to a lot of different panels and things like that and spoken to different lawyers. And, even the SEC is really sort of slippery about giving specific answers. Like they say, it's the specific facts and circumstances of the offering. And so they won't even necessarily put a pin in like exactly where the line is. I for my part, when I'm thinking about it, I tend to think about, okay, is this thing like essentially an investment contract with a future expectation of profit? That's sort of where I draw the line. Is like if it's something like, okay, so the token doesn't exist yet, the system completely doesn't exist yet, and I'm asking you for money to build it. That's squarely in the realm of an investment contract. And so, but the cool thing is when it comes down to that kind of stuff, there's tons and tons of mechanisms by which you can take money, you can accept money under those kind of terms. You just have to approach it correctly. In the United States, at least, different countries have slightly different rules. So, you know.
Yeah, so Expecto, you keep asking about the Canary X Masternode and when Canary Node. To which you know the answer, soon, TM.
No, I thought it was 350 days.
That's true. The answer to everything about with Canary Coin is about 350.
So whatever that is.
So yeah, when Canary Node, about 350.
Yeah.
Give or take.
But you're going to do Masternodes? No.
Yeah, no, it's not. Well, how about this? We're going to roadmap it.
Right.
We'll roadmap
it on the roadmap.
But like when Lucky, you're asking about Long Island iced tea soars after changing its name to Long Blockchain.
Yeah.
You're not wrong, right? Yeah, everything out there, it is the new buzzword. But if you can throw on your roadmap also, or in your white paper, something about AI, maybe deep learning. Yeah. When Canary Fork? I think we already forked. We're a fork of a fork.
Yeah, you're hard forking your own coin soon.
Yeah,
but the original fork testnet is down. So is it really a hard fork if you're just relaunching?
That's true. That, and guys, we are looking at. I mean, we're still evaluating other options as base code to either fork or clone, right? So like Bitcoin New York came up only because they've already attempted to do ProgBow integration. I've heard from a couple of devs that just say it's not integrated correctly. Top among them, this is not a dig at Bitcoin New York, but I've heard Christy say it's not quite the implementation that I had imagined, which for me is a little bit of a red flag. Like, I don't know why I would start there unless it's to fix the implementation. So I don't know. We've got a discussion going on in Discord about that. So if you see some really promising projects where we can use it as a really strong base to implement ProgPow, then be vocal over there. Talk to us about it.
Cool.
But Motion, yeah, from the community, I keep hearing about Motion. Everyone keeps saying, hey, go interview Motion. Go talk to Motion.
Oh, shoot. They're not even on my radar at all. It's a Masternode coin?
I think so, yeah. So, well, no, Innova is the Masternode coin, which is weird to me because Innova is also in the name of the most popular brand of professional disc, like Frisbee golf equipment is Innova. Right? So I got confused. I'm like, wait, is this like the official currency for buying like Frisbee golf stuff? So I don't know. Tell me a little bit about Innova. I saw it on, was it Masternodes Pro or Masternodes Online? And their initial profitability projections to me seemed like impressive, but firmly in the territory of like, wait and see. Like I've got to wait about 2 months to see how this holds, see what happens here. Cause there's no way that we're doing multiple 1,000% ROI on this thing. But hey, Brandon, you brought it up in the comment section. Tell us what your experience so far with the Innova Masternode has been.
Well, and a lot of Masternodes now launch with really high. Well, they'll seem to have very high ROI at first, just because there aren't a lot of Masternodes yet. It's just like similar to mining. As competition increases, then the reward, you have to proportionally share it with the other Masternodes. So always factor that into your calculations of ROI. But when it comes to Masternodes. As you know, I'm kind of a fan of Masternodes at the moment, so I wish I'd discovered them sooner, to be honest.
And that's just it, guys. With Masternodes, it's a lot like mining. I mean, people, there are accusations of selfish mining and selfish pool operation, and all these. There's so many ways to manipulate mining, as we know, and as we're finding out all the time. So with Masternodes, there's always room for an honest actor to come in and provide real value, and have that be a really great investment.
Well, I mean, I think a good example of, let's say, a coin that sort of kind of needs Masternodes right now, both let's say Zcoin and Zencash, which use different systems. One uses zero cash protocol, and one uses the zero coin protocol. It's a different systems for anonymization of.
Yeah, we do have to get better at nomenclature, though. We really do.
Yeah.
In this space, like because you can say BTC and people are like, which one?
But that's a good point. But yeah, these two actually, and unfortunately, they're so similarly named, and they use different anonymization technologies. But anyway, the masternodes do contribute to the anonymization efforts. They actually help offload some of that work. So they're not a completely pointless feature. And even in the most basic masternode coin, they do incentivize keeping full nodes, which it's a lot of proof of stake coins, at least sort of as a side effect of how you have to stake coins, because you can't cold stake them. You essentially have to run a full node anyway. So I think in some ways that is one nice feature of that type of coin, is that the fact that it incentivizes running full nodes, which you still need the mining in a coin that is proof of work in order to secure the coin. But you do, to really be well decentralized, you have to have lots of copies of the blockchain as well. So I think incentivizing that in some way is an important feature of a coin. But
absolutely,
a lot of people hate on masternodes like they're like evil and completely pointless. And I don't. Yeah, it's a spectrum, like all things in crypto, right? Like
totally. And the days of one CPU, one vote are gone, because it's not one CPU, one vote. It's not one CPU. It's not even one wallet, one node.
Yeah.
Right. Like we're one full node. We're so far removed from that time that you have to incentivize everything except wallet ownership.
Yeah,
basically.
I feel less guilty about running a hardware wallet when I know I'm also running a masternode, because at least I'm like keeping a copy of a blockchain someplace.
Yeah, so I love the suggestion there, XBitCo. Yes, well, no, I can't commit to it publicly, but I will say soon, TM, we will consider airdropping free masternodes for Canary.
You'd have to fork a masternode coin next,
right? Yeah, and so airdropping enough collateral for a masternode, provided that you run a masternode. I don't know.
How do you do it fair? Oh, and actually taking it back to the bananos. Where's bananos?
I went to the front of the list. This is important.
This is what I thought was kind of fun, is that Bananos have a airdrop mechanism, which is a faucet game, and this was huge for the whole Venezuelan aid effort, because in like an hour you can win like the equivalent of like a month's worth of salary in Venezuela through the faucet. And I mean, I don't know if a faucet game's a strong enough anti-bot mechanism, because if you were a clever enough AI researcher, you might be able to create a bot that could play the game. Yeah. But at least for like however long the airdrop sort of period or the faucet period lasts, it might still be at least like an anti-Sybil effect, where you have to at least be a human that's playing the game to get the airdrop, rather than setting up a bot to just slurp off of the faucet. Which is pretty, I think it's, and the game looks pretty fun. It's like a runner type game. So I actually haven't played it yet. I was going to play it with my nephew while I'm out here, but hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, very cool. So Litecoin Lucky, you ask about which of us got into crypto first. Decidedly my brother, and I've gone on record a couple of times talking about that, how he got into crypto first, and with between two of our other brothers, had worked on some pretty cool stuff actually in the space in terms of mining pools.
We had a pool, and we were miners too for a while. So I'm not really a miner anymore. It's a lot of work, as Seth can probably attest.
Oh my gosh!
And anyone here who's a miner, anything beyond a couple rigs,
right? I mean, Aaron came in and he looked at my test rigs, which because the game has changed too. Like the rigs that you had mining when you were mining,
I sort of early ASIC period, like the second gen ASICs of 28 nanometer and ASIC days.
Yeah.
And when ASICs just started massively, essentially the game was over. FPGAs for BTC mining were history. GPUs were still viable for script, actually, before the script ASICs came out. But sort of near the end, the script ASICs had come out, and script N was ASIC mineable. And it's interesting because for all the controversy that seems to be happening now with like the ASICs coming out for the really truly memory hard stuff like Ethash and stuff like that, it's not a new debate, guys. This happened when script ASICs came out, right? Like, oh, haters, and then Vertcoin's they've sort of been on the vanguard of trying to outrun, like stay ahead of ASICs, because that happened to them way back then with script N, and they've been sort of just changing their algorithm all along. They set part of that culture of just saying, okay, GPUs are always going to be the most decentralized way. I mean, at least the hash power is more decentralized, and there's more. But think of it this way too: the whole thing of decentralization sort of being a bit of a misnomer or sort of an illusion is, you know, there's only 2 companies that make GPUs too, or well, the actual main IP. I mean, if you want to count Intel, maybe there's 3, right? But
yeah, but even then, Intel's they're probably a bigger player in the FPGA space, like the Xeon Phi, which some people would lump under the umbrella of GPU, is probably more aptly termed an FPGA.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sure that there are some GPU applications with Xeon Phi, but no, it's more of an FPGA, and they've got a more extensive line of FPGAs. So yeah, Intel. I don't know. Like I wish that we've got to bring on a few more. I think a few more bitstream programmers and FPGA developers on the show so we can talk about that. We've been talking so much about the Xilinx products lately, guys, that I think we need to talk about Intel. They're the sleeping giant in all this. They've got so much.
Well, and they have their own fabs too. So I mean, there's an interesting thing. The heterogeneous compute with like GPU and CPU has already sort of been a thing for a while. But this actually been on my radar for some time, is heterogeneous compute that is FPGA accelerated. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 2 years, let's say, we see CPUs with coprocessors that are effectively FPGA blocks. Because like where we're getting to right now is a point where we kind of have like an embarrassment of sort of transistor counts. It's like, what are we going to use all these transistors for? What's all this die space? What are we going to use it for? So it probably won't be long before somebody creates the equivalent of like an APU that's got an FPGA block on it.
Right. Or I mean, and I've been a fan of this for forever. I mean, AMD, at least from the fanboy standpoint, they've gotten fan mail from me, sort of like when they first talked about their Fusion platform. When they were first talking about their APUs, before it had a name, APUs, they were calling it Fusion for the longest time. I was like, well, screw that. Just do a dual ZIF board, right? Where we have a separate sort of universal socket that's for a coprocessor.
Oh, they did that. They did that. There was a company that created an FPGA that fit in the second. You could use a dual socket board. It used what's AMD's bus protocol called? But their memory level bus protocol.
Yeah.
And it used the second socket for an FPGA. So you put a CPU in one socket and an FPGA in the other. This was almost more than 10 years ago.
Dude, okay, yeah, and I was pushing for that because I mean, in the video space at least, it's like here we are almost 10 years into CUDA being a thing, and GPU-based video transcoding and encoding is still not that great. It's really not that great. You still have software rendering for video, software encoding for video still yields better results, and it's like, why is that the case? I saw at NAB some years back too, Sony, when they still owned the Vegas Pro line of software, they had some of their engineers from the mothership in Japan. They created a little FPGA coprocessor that used not the SBIS, not the SBIS card. It wasn't SBS, but it was the Express port.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that? You guys remember that? For a short time, the MacBooks had that, but the Express port, it was the after the P2 and ports kind of were phased out, but it was PCI Express. So it's about 4 lanes of PCI Express, and they had this little FPGA that they had brought from their lab in Japan, and they were like, "Hey, check this out!" Boom, and it was faster than real-time video encoding of HD material, which at the time was like, dude, nobody's doing that, and they had it locked to their own proprietary codec, and I was like, everybody, like every video producer in the world needs this yesterday.
Yeah.
Why isn't this a product?
So, Sarjan, I think I said it right. It says Intel already has FPGA cards for.
Yeah, so that's the Xeon Phi.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So that's the Xeon Phi, and it is. Some people have probably mischaracterized it as a GPU because it's got that same GPU form factor as, say, like the Xilinx VCU 1525. Cool cards.
I thought really it was cool like cards. Kind of more like a bunch of like really simple x86 cores or something, but
that's probably
that could be, but that could be a different thing. I mean, I don't even, because Phi had this sort of stream processor kind of approach.
Yes, guys. Okay, so again, nothing on this show is like literal advice. I'm spitballing right now. So pardon me, I don't have the full spec sheet in my head, but I do know that Xeon Phi was intended for data center use, pretty much exclusively.
So Seth's Super Sunday shill show.
Pretty much. Who
are we shilling now, Patrick?
Yeah, no, Patrick, he's on to us, man. That Intel contract we have.
Oh.
Shucks, we've been discovered.
Shilling. Oh, yeah. Intel?
Yeah, sorry, Intel, you can't.
I'm actually an AMD fanboy, so if you think that I'm shilling Intel.
Okay, and you guys should be pretty much hip to the fact that I'm pretty down with AMD also.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole like dual chip card when Christy came on the show and was like, check it out, I've got dual P106s. I was like, come on, where's the love for AMD? They've got dual chip designs.
So I think Risto thinks that I'm a BTC whale. Dude, I wish. Do you think I'd be doing a podcast on Sunday? No, I'd be like whatever, sailing in the Caribbean.
Right. Yeah, no, we would be broadcasting from the British Virgin Islands. Or Puerto Rico, I guess.
Shilling Turtle. Yeah, well, I think Rocksteady's totally cool. So I'm not shilling his coin. I just think he's like the coolest dev ever.
I got to give him a shout out again too. And I feel bad because I gave Seb Green some airtime and that and apparently there's what were Rocksteady's words? He was like, "You're not going to understand. It's like a Bloods versus Crips thing." And so there's some rivalry going on there, and I feel that big time because there are a lot of different ideologies too, right, among the developer community. But I'm with Aaron, man. Rock was super cool, and he was super generous with his time, guys. Like
he taught him how to fork a coin.
Yeah, I could have just done. Well, XBitCo, you can't shill what you own.
Yeah, that's just talking your book, is what they call that.
Oh yeah.
So cool. Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to playing this Banano game. So if anybody else plays the Banano game, tell us how it worked out. I'm probably going to play it sometime this weekend. Get some bananos.
Yeah, hey Izzy, I'm with you. I enjoyed the Seb Green discussion as well, and it was kind of funny because he made a comment afterwards and was like, "Hey, so you posted this without permission?" And it's like, I don't know. According to U.S. laws, I broke no laws for transcribing our talk and publishing it in the format that I did. I broke no laws because there was one informed party and it's not a criminal investigation. Both. So broke no laws, but also I did nothing that was explicitly prohibited. I didn't break any rules. So I'm glad it was informative, guys. I knew that it would be. Like in my heart of hearts, I knew that we would start to come together and sort of meet in the middle and start having some good discussion. Amazingly, that's one of my few videos that has 0 downvotes. I mean, somebody's going to go over and downvote the crap out of it now, I'm sure.
Yeah, but just jinx yourself.
Right. But at least, yeah, to this point, it had 0 downvotes because people on both sides of the argument, right? Either pro Seb in his pools or very anti Seb in his pools. One of the most vocal critics of Seb, he hit me up privately on Discord and was like, "Well, I hadn't really thought about it that way." And then he went on record with Seb and was like, "Hey, I probably need to give you the benefit of the doubt. Let's talk more about what you think over on this topic." So, guys, no, I'm not trying. I'm trying not to censor people on the show. I'm trying to get as much of a rich variety of opinions as possible. Because, again, the big players, the little players, the players that maybe hint at radical ANCAP ideology. I think everybody, we need to have these voices come together and just educate each other better, so we can all do the job of educating grandma. That's I think the most noble goal, right? Educating grandma. We can't do that unless we've considered a ton of different approaches.
Cool. Well, you want to call it a show? This is kind of a normal. I was to say, was this a long show? No, this is about the normal length for our shows.
Yeah,
an hour. They seem to always go at least an hour, sometimes 40 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, so guys, let's just check to see. Do you have any more questions for us before we call it a show?
Since we're actually in person or both in the same room, it makes it a little easier.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. I mean, I wish we could do this for every Sunday show. We can't always. We normally pre-record. But this okay. Yeah. Yes, Izzy, grandma is gonna love us. and hopefully we can help protect grandma's fixed income from the IRS by talking crypto to her.
Oh, Risto's asking what we think of POS. So actually, I am a fan of POS coins, even though I know just from reading through different people's analysis of them that they are less secure than proof of work type coins. Stake type coins, they do there's typically they can theoretically be attacked in such a way where this whole notion of the rich getting richer, that it essentially you can take over the network via stake slowly. It may take a million years, but it's theoretically possible. They also lack the same sort of brute force proof of work component of the investment in energy in order to actually create the nonce that's necessary to prove that you did the work to get your position in the queue for doing the stuff, for appending the next block. They have a sort of verifiable way of generating that via some mechanism with proof of stake, but it's not really truly security-wise equivalent to a proof of work approach. And that's why so many people are critical of proof of stake type coins. But I personally think they're great because they're so much more energy efficient. One of the hard parts about depending on the proof of stake coin is the coin distribution model. How are you going to fairly distribute the coin? So I think really probably the best way to do a fair launch would be to have a proof of work distribution phase that is fairly long, and then finally shift over, and I would say progressively, to a proof of stake type of model. And then, there's proof of stake algorithms that have been stable enough. I don't know if they're rock solid. Is that one of the nice things about, say, for example, the proof of work, like Bitcoin, what Bitcoin does is, and this is one of the reasons why the whole thing of ASIC resistance and stuff, you've heard me kind of waffle on this a bit too, of why I kind of think it's pointless to have something like a, how do I say this without sounding like I'm completely dismissing the goals of ASIC resistant algorithms? But anyway, higher number of hashes, meaning a higher number of potential partial hash inversions, meaning a deeper apparent proof, is more attainable when you're able to do more hashes per second, more solutions per second. And by making an algorithm intentionally memory hard, you're actually reducing those numbers. Now, yes, I understand it's all versus relative stake of the whole network. But to me, it seems like an interesting, it's all kind of pointless, wasted work, right? So I'm actually talking against Seth's typical ASIC resistance thing, but it's a different view.
No, that's just it. No, I think we're actually very much in alignment there. I talk often about the arms race of us buying up every piece of available silicon and running it full throttle to be able to secure networks.
Yeah,
it is inherently wasteful, and people who argue to the opposite are not paying attention to what's happening.
Yeah,
because we are by and large, AMD and NVIDIA are having record years because of us.
Yeah.
Not because of anybody else.
And the number one argument for and so this is why ASIC resistance is useful in my mind. So jumping back to the other side of that argument, and arguing against myself, is that you're using general purpose compute equipment, which means it still has a life. It has a useful value outside of just doing those hash collisions. So it's or those partial hash inversions, and it's like. But anyway, proof of stake, I got on a rabbit hole there talking about how proof of work even played into it at all. Proof of stake seems to be stable enough. There's coins like Blackcoin that have, and Quantum adopted the same proof of stake 3.0. They considered it secure enough. And the funny thing is, it's incredibly, arguably even sort of a naive implementation of proof of work. It's like one of the simplest approaches to proof of work, proof of stake algorithm that you can think of. It's got the closest thing to a sort of generic, unregulated, so the way delegated proof of stake does a sort of round robin approach to where it always hands stake to another staker. It has the closest thing that you can do that in a decentralized sort of way, where there is no stake weight, and it's just basically everybody gets a fair roll based on their instantaneous stake at that moment. And so there are proof of stake algos that seem to be stable enough in practice to be usable.
Yeah, no, Brandon Ford, I think you'll have proof of crap coins after you have your proof of stake at dinner tomorrow night. I think we've already rehashed that joke. So I'm with you. I think that there does need to be a bit of there does need to be more of a balanced approach in considering how do we gracefully retire proof of work, and what is the time frame that we can do that. Clearly, the Ethereum Foundation, they've been asking that question of the community for forever.
Since day one, they wanted, that was on their roadmap. They wanted to get to proof of stake.
Yeah. But then somebody brought up the BCI project. Who hey, big shout out to the BCI team who were on the channel before. You guys saw the interview that I had with one of their co-founders. And because right now they're doing hybrid proof of work, proof of stake, and they have announced ProgPow adoption. Have they implemented it yet? No, but I really appreciate what they're trying to do. And I agree. I think that moving forward and figuring out how do we slide the block rewards in favor, how do we shift them in favor of proof of stake over time, and then add real world functionality and value, and useful work. How do we add that to these networks to retire proof of work in a graceful way, but also keep some of these networks alive in a way that's valuable to objectively to a third party, without taking all of that's so cool. All of the everything that's 14 nanometer, that was so nice that we got to use that for blockchain. Now throw it all in the ocean. We're done. Mm-hmm. Like, how do we make sure that we're good stewards over, first off, the potential uses of all this stuff before we retire it? Mm-hmm. Like, not to get like ultra hippy dippy, guys. We're not hugging trees here, but at the same time, we're talking about so many.
But I'm not running around cutting them down for no reason either.
Right. Right. Yeah. So yeah, like at the end of the day, like we have tons and tons and tons of silicon.
Yeah.
That is totally good for this right now, it seems, but we're not even using it efficiently.
Well, XBitco's got a good point here. What about quantum computers? Yeah. So, I've not looked into quantum. So what I understand about quantum computers is they can crack the private keys, but in terms of doing the hash inversions necessary to like unzip the blockchain, they are not even going to be capable of that. So quantum computers, they threaten blockchains for different reasons. Now, I don't know. There are elliptic curve, certain elliptic curves that have been selected because they're considered, and it's theoretical at this point, to be more resistant to quantum computing than others. So there may still be cryptography approaches that are quantum resistant, but I'm not an expert, so I still need to learn more about actually how quantum compute is going to interact with the cryptography of blockchains.
Right, guys. It's gonna be hard to really measure what the effect of quantum compute will be across everything we know, as there's enough quantum compute resource available to start having it to start gaining some kind of meaningful action against current networks and current compute endeavors. Mm-hmm. So with one quantum computer, how much of a threat is it? Mm-hmm. With highly available quantum compute in every state across the world,
you'll have a quantum compute. Actually, some people probably don't even realize it, but there's quantum compute components in certain not even very expensive chips. Hardware random number generators essentially exploit they're not quantum computers per se, but they use a source that uses quantum-like principles to generate the hardware random number generation capability. So some of them use a simpler thing. Some of them use a little leaky gate kind of thing, which is sort of like a quantum computer concept. It doesn't do compute. It just makes noise basically. But
yeah. That's super cool. So a couple of comments that I'd like to just take head on really fast, guys. So Izzy, you brought up retire proof of work. What? I know it's heresy. So please forgive me, but hear me out. And I think what we've been talking about is not so much like slash and burn. I don't think either one of us is talking about slashing and burning proof of work as much as talking about if we don't get ahead of this conversation as people who are interested in masternodes or contributing to the networks, right? Masternodes, mining, and staking. As participants in this stuff, if we don't get ahead of this conversation, then how are we going to be able to contribute meaningfully to the discussions of groups like the Ethereum Foundation or like the Zcash Foundation or any of the coins that we want to support? And how are we going to be able to architect, right? Or how are we going to be able to roadmap our own participation in this stuff if we don't get ahead of what some of the possible outcomes could be? Beyond that, no, solar is not like the end all be all. It cannot possibly be the answer to all things crypto. If it were, then every hash today would be would actually correspond to photovoltaic usage somewhere in the world. That's not the case. There's a lot of hydro being used in Iceland where Genesis Mining is. They're using geothermal. And then when you mine anywhere in the United States, you've got a mix of power generation technologies.
A lot of hydro. And hydro is actually one of the most cost-effective sources of power, period. I mean, it's super, super competitive with, I mean, burning coal is actually not the most inexpensive way to make electricity. Actually, photovoltaic electricity is on par with coal actually right now. I don't know with gas, because coal in this country at least has a lot of additional burdens in terms of staying compliant with emissions laws and stuff. They have to have chimney scrubbers and all this other kind of stuff, which puts a little bit of more expense for them.
Efficiencies in photovoltaics, I mean, it should improve, right? There's been improvement throughout the history of photovoltaics. It's reasonable to consider and to believe that there will be more optimization and more efficiency to gain down the line with photovoltaics.
Well, I mean, I there's some people, it's not under NDA, but I've heard of groups working on, there's the one, Envion, which that was supposed to, I don't know if they had that weird exit. I don't know if it was an exit scam, but they're having trouble. But then there's other groups, multiple other groups working on it, because an interesting thing about using photovoltaic for mining is, think of it this way, it's a faster way of ROIing your investment in your PV. What if you could ROI your PV investment in, like, I don't know, you made a spreadsheet and you proved that in 3 years or 4 years, you could ROI your entire thing, because you could essentially sell yourself electricity. You don't even think of the cost of the electricity. You think of the cost of generation of the electricity, and you tie it into your total system design for your mining farm. So now all of a sudden, it's not about the fact that my electricity costs X number of cents per kilowatt hour or whatever. It's more about my cost, my total system cost for generating this cryptocurrency, which I've done some hopefully decent models in my spreadsheet on, comes out to this, including my power generation. Now, all of a sudden, at the end of my project, the end of my life cycle, which I've modeled hopefully with some reasonable numbers that leave some leeway in there in case everything goes wrong. At the end of this project, my photovoltaics will be paid off. My ASICs will be ROI'd, or whatever I'm using to mine. My GPUs will be ROI'd, and boom, project's done. And I've got this sweet asset that's completely paid for, and now still has a 20-year long tail to make electricity for me and make money.
Yeah, and that, I mean, so guys, you've heard me say on the show multiple times, the most important thing, if you're getting into mining, the most important thing is to treat it like a business. Whatever you do, don't treat it like a hobby. So have some kind of a business plan, understand what your costs are, what your liabilities are, understand what your timelines are, what your internal rate of return is, and have some real objectives in terms of what your business is. Mm-hmm. So if you're talking about breaking even on your capex for PV,
solar farm, and
you're just saying like, hey, I just want to break even on my capex for PV. It totally turns the argument for like, oh no, I'm never going to ROI on my mining gear. It completely turn it on its head. Mm-hmm. You're not worried about, like, because this time last year, it was you could look at GPU purchases and think, all right, I might break even in 4 months, 6 months. Now you'd be very lucky to do that. Mm-hmm. And so if you look at this long tail instead and think like, well, no, I've got a much bigger financial goal and business goal in view, then who cares that you're not ROIing in exactly whatever 96 days. Mm-hmm. But Izzy, to speak very straightforwardly to the idea that we can go all solar, go all in, all solar on every kind of mining operation. It's not always feasible. So you go to certain markets, you have only a certain number of days of sunshine per year. That throws photovoltaics off. You can throw in a lithium ion array or a lithium polymer array, or you can throw in a capacitor array to start buying off-peak energy from the grid. Sure, fine. These are all optimizations, but they're all iterative. They don't do anything transformative to the networks to help us really change the economics that much. It helps one operation, but it doesn't necessarily help everybody globally to talk about those two specific technologies. Yes, renewables are important, but also the real problem with proof of work is not even necessarily power generation and power distribution. The bigger problem is that we are buying up all the silicon. We're accounting for all the mining and manufacture and refining of silicon in the world right now. Like, as fast as we can buy it, it is in our best interest, and more so than almost any other industry, it's in our best interest to buy it up as fast as possible. It's why NVIDIA has parts now that cost $9,000 so that we won't buy it all up.
Yeah, so it seems like, I mean, with the sort of crazy arms race for mining, but I mean, we are because of the drop in profitability, we're at a new equilibrium, at least now. There's a lot of people dropping out, and it's cyclical. I mean, if you're like die hard, this is now when you would want to start thinking about, okay, how am I gonna keep staying involved in mining and whatever, double down, whatever you want to call it, at this point, so that you could be competitive. Because for anybody who's been involved in any of these cycles before, you realize that when it's profitable, when we're in a sort of more of a bullish market where you just can't not make money, when you cannot fail to make money, there's like no availability of hardware at all. It's like too late to buy hardware. So that's something to keep in mind if you're a miner. I mean, the really hardcore old school miners that are still active, they're just basically, they just mine steadily away like all the time. They don't worry about like profitability. They have different strategies for hedging that situation of when profitability drops.
Tell the XBitcoin, I love that. Yeah, we'll get Silicoin. We'll call it Silicoin. Done. Somebody buy Silicoin.io. Quick.
S Corp, Izzy, Logan. Well, single member LLC is a pretty good entity too. It's handled as a pass-through. That works pretty well as well.
You've got to be committed to
S Corp.
Yeah, got to be committed to it being passed through though. And again, this is not financial, legal, or business advice.
You're kind of forced with that with the S election though as well. You're pretty much forced to do pass-through. So,
but
it's the same tax container.
Talk to your CPA.
Yeah.
Yeah. Soon, TM. Talk to your CPA, TM.
For sure.
But so guys, I think we probably need to call it a show, but I think it's been a great conversation about all kinds of stuff here. Tell us, what do you think about this whole thing with ICE and Microsoft and Starbucks? What is this going to mean? And will Roger Ver have to say something use some example other than buying your coffee after they're done?
Yeah.
What does this mean, guys? Tell us down in the comments. Let us know. Also, give us a seed for next week's show. Some kind of through line that we can talk about. This was cool. Maybe something else like this will come up during the week. As you know, in the Mind Your Biz Discord, we've got a separate channel just for the Sunday Crypto Show. So you're always welcome to drop ideas down there for us. We can just kind of talk about, XBitCo. That is a can of worms. I don't think we can jump into that today, but we'll maybe look at that for next week. Guys, appreciate your support. Appreciate you hitting the like button, clicking the bell icon so you know when we go live. First time we've gone live for the Sunday Crypto Show. Might not be the last. It's been fun, but we don't always we're not always in the same town. So
yeah. The undisclosed sound will be edited out of the not live stream.
Right. But we're gonna do what we can here. So guys, thanks so much for your support. Thanks for sharing us on Reddit, especially our cryptocurrency. Shout out again to the moderators there. Appreciate so much your guys' support. We try to be as unbiased and impartial as we can be. We're just spitballing, right? We calls them how we sees them.
Yeah.
But we don't have affiliations or bounties or puppet masters.
Yeah.
So,
as it were, we have our own projects, right, which we have not been shilling yet.
Right, but we are pretty transparent about this too. Like, you guys, I mean, you're aware of kind of the stuff that we work on. Like, we're not secretive. Like, hey, let's shape the conversation this way so we can secretly sell Masternodes secretly. No big secrets, guys. But yeah, no, I am a little worried about McDonald's coin and Starbucks coin. I would much rather just be able to pay with the crypto of my choice, but whatever, we'll see. Guys, appreciate your support. Again, if you are so inclined, you can always make an anonymous donation to the show by using the addresses you see in the description. Your support is appreciated. So thanks so much, guys. We will see you. We'll see you next week.
Cool. Later.